What if two nations that were once rivals, two countries with different histories, different cultures, and different ambitions, suddenly found themselves standing on the same side of the world's most dangerous geopolitical conflicts? What if the reason had nothing to do with friendship and everything to do with power, survival, and a shared challenge to the global order led by the United States? In the complex chessboard of international politics, alliances are rarely about trust, they're about interests. And in the case of Russia and Iran, their growing partnership has become one of the most important and controversial relationships shaping global politics today. To understand why Russia chose to stand beside Iran, we must go back through decades of history, wars, sanctions, and a world slowly shifting toward a new balance of power. A relationship born from necessity. For most of history, Russia and Iran were not natural allies. In fact, during the 19th century, the Russian Empire and Persian Empire fought several wars over territory in the Caucasus region. Russia took large areas of land that had once belonged to Persia. These historical wounds left deep scars in Iranian political memory. But international politics has a strange way of turning former rivals into strategic partners. By the late 20th century, both countries began facing pressure from the same global superpower, the United States. Iran's relationship with the United States collapsed after the Iranian Revolution, which overthrew the Western-backed Shah and replaced him with an Islamic government. From that moment on, Iran became one of Washington's biggest geopolitical adversaries. Russia's story was different. After the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991, Russia temporarily cooperated with the United States. But as time passed, tensions grew again. By the early 2000s, Russia believed that the United States was expanding its influence too close to Russian borders through organizations like NATO. Slowly, Moscow began looking for partners who were also resisting American pressure. Iran was one of them. The shared enemy effect. In international politics, one of the fastest ways to create alliances is through a shared rival. Both Russia and Iran see the United States as the dominant force shaping global politics. Iran has faced decades of sanctions, economic restrictions, and political isolation from the West. Russia experienced increasing pressure as well, especially after the annexation of Crimea by the Russian Federation. Western governments imposed heavy economic sanctions on Moscow. These sanctions pushed Russia to strengthen relationships with countries that were already outside the Western economic system. Iran was a natural candidate. Both countries began cooperating in several key areas: military strategy, energy markets, regional influence, and sanctions resistance. What started as cautious cooperation gradually turned into a deeper strategic partnership. The Syrian War, where the alliance became real. One of the most important moments in the Russia-Iran relationship came during the Syrian civil war. When protests erupted in Syria in 2011, they quickly escalated into a full-scale civil war. The government of Bashar al-Assad was at risk of collapse. For Iran, Syria was extremely important. Syria served as a key link between Iran and its regional allies, especially Hezbollah in Lebanon. If Assad fell, Iran's regional influence could collapse as well. Russia had its own reasons to intervene. Syria hosted Russia's only major naval facility in the Mediterranean at Tartus Naval Base. If the Assad government collapsed, Russia risked losing its strategic foothold in the Middle East. So both countries made a crucial decision. They backed Assad. Iran provided militias, military advisors, and financial support. Russia provided something even more powerful: air power. In 2015, Russian fighter jets began bombing anti-government forces across Syria. The combined efforts of Russian air support and Iranian-backed ground forces dramatically shifted the balance of the war.
Assad survived, and the military cooperation between Russia and Iran became stronger than ever. Economic cooperation under sanctions. Another major reason Russia stands beside Iran is economic survival. Both countries have been heavily targeted by Western sanctions. Sanctions limit access to international banking systems, global trade, and foreign investment. For countries under sanctions, cooperation becomes essential. Russia and Iran began working together to create alternative financial systems that bypass Western-controlled institutions like SWIFT. They also expanded trade using local currencies instead of the US dollar. Energy cooperation became another major factor. Russia is one of the world's largest oil and gas producers. Iran also holds enormous energy reserves. Together, the two countries control a huge portion of global natural gas resources. By coordinating energy policies, they can influence global markets and challenge Western economic pressure. Military technology and strategic support. In recent years, military cooperation between Russia and Iran has grown even deeper. Iran has developed significant expertise in drone warfare. During the Russian invasion of Ukraine, reports emerged that Russia began using Iranian-designed drones in military operations. These drones provided Russia with relatively low-cost weapons capable of targeting infrastructure and military positions. In return, Iran reportedly gained access to advanced Russian military technology. This exchange strengthened both countries' defense capabilities. For Russia, it helped fill gaps during a prolonged war. For Iran, it offered access to technology that had long been restricted by Western sanctions. Challenging the global order. Beyond immediate strategic benefits, the Russia-Iran partnership also reflects a broader geopolitical vision. Both nations argue that the world should no longer be dominated by a single superpower. They support a multipolar world where several major powers share global influence. This idea is also promoted by countries like China. From Moscow and Tehran's perspective, cooperation helps push the world toward that new balance of power. In a multipolar system, Western sanctions and political pressure would have less power. That goal makes partnerships like Russia and Iran increasingly important. The Middle East power game. The Middle East is one of the most strategically important regions on Earth. It contains major energy resources, critical shipping routes, and complex political rivalries. Iran is already a powerful regional player. By supporting Iran, Russia increases its influence across the Middle East. This influence extends into countries like Syria, Iraq, Lebanon. Russia can position itself as a mediator, military partner, and political broker across the region. This gives Moscow leverage in negotiations with Western powers. A strategic partnership, not a perfect alliance. Despite their cooperation, Russia and Iran do not completely trust each other. Their relationship is based more on strategic necessity than genuine alliance. They sometimes compete in energy markets. They also have different long-term goals in the Middle East. But as long as they face similar pressures from the West, their partnership remains valuable. In international affairs, alliances are rarely permanent, but shared interests can create powerful partnerships that reshape the world. Final thought. In the end, Russia did not stand beside Iran out of friendship. It did so because their interests intersect at a critical moment in world history. Both nations want to resist Western pressure. Both want to expand their influence. Both want a world where power is divided among several major players rather than dominated by one power. And as long as those goals remain aligned, the partnership between Russia and Iran will continue shaping global politics. Because in international affairs, alliances are rarely permanent.